Greetings and God's peace be with you. We're nearing the end of Pentecost, and next Sunday will be the celebration of the Feast of Christ the King. Today we're going to take a look at the parable of the talents in Matthew, beginning the 25th chapter, 14th through the 13th verses. Jesus said to his friends, "For it is as if a man going on a journey summoned his slaves and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went away. The one who had received the 5 talents went off at once and traded with them, and he made 5 more talents. In the same way, the one who had been given 2 talents made 2 more talents. But the one who had received the 1 talent went off and dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those slaves came and settled accounts with them. Then the one who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 more talents, saying, 'Master, you handed over to me 5 talents. See, I have made 5 more.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter into the joy of your master.' And then the one with 2 talents came forward, saying, 'Master, you handed over to me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more talents.' His master said to him, 'Well done, good and faithful, trustworthy slave. You have been trustworthy in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Enter now into the joy of your master.' Then the one who had received the 1 talent also came forward. He said, 'Master, I knew that you were a harsh man, reaping where you did not sow, gathering where you did not scatter seed. So I was afraid. And I went and I hid your talent in the ground. Here, have what is yours.' But his master replied, 'You wicked and lazy slave. You knew, did you, that I reap where I do not sow and gather where I do not scatter? Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and on my return I would have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one with 10 talents. For all of those who have, more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who have nothing, even what they have will be taken away. As for this worthless slave, throw him out into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth.'" This is not an easy word to hear, but I do want to explore its meaning for us today. It really has to do with using the skills of the gifts and the talents that we've been given, or losing them. When I first got to university, there was an opportunity to take a placement test in Latin. I'd only taken 2 years of Latin in high school, and that had been 2 years prior to my entrance into the university. But I thought, well, I might as well see if I could get a credit or 2, so I took the test. The next day, the scores were posted. I went up, took a look. At the top I started, looking for my name, and down, and down, and down, and I did not see my name. And down, still nothing. And then I spotted my name, and it was right at the bottom of the list. It reminds me that we use skills and talents, or we lose them. I have the same problem remembering computer languages that I've studied, like Latin. If I want to write a computer program today, I'd need to dust the cobwebs off my manuals. Most of us have examples of having a skill in the past and then losing it over time because of disuse. use it or lose it. I want you to hold that thought now. Let's be really clear about the meaning of this parable, and accept that it is not a story about the glorification of money, or that you'll become somehow financially wealthy by following a gospel formula of wealth creation. Many Christians have done that in many churches and have missed the point of this story entirely. Money here, the talents, is a metaphor that represents our potential as Christians to use the gifts we've received by God to live as Christ lived in the world. Developing and using our God-given skills, talents, and gifts to the advantage of others enhances what I'll call the Christ effect in the world. What is that Christ effect? It's when love produces love exponentially. Start first with the love that you have been given, and now increase that amount by the number of times that you have shared that love over time. And each recipient of the love that you gave does the same thing. The two faithful slaves in the parable did just that, and the third failed. He didn't even try to use the resource entrusted to him, so he lost it. Use it or lose it. This parable also teaches that we are not simply in a waiting game, waiting for the end of time, defined as either when we die or at the time of the end of the world. Instead of waiting and biding our time, this parable shows us we are to be engaged in the world and in productive ministries that enrich the value of Christ's kingdom. This is a story about the stewardship of our lives and what happens if we choose to use or choose not to use and neglect the talents and the skills and gifts with which we have been entrusted. In each of my ministries over many, many years, I've appreciated different gifts that each church has. What you have helped me to appreciate here is your use of God's gift of resilience. Despite the maturing of our bodies, while a reality, while we get older and older, that need not be a barrier, a hindrance, or a limitation to the ministries we're called to initiate, to nurture, and to grow. Here, in this church, your ministries proclaim this to the community, and with joy. Come and join us if you can keep up, but don't get in the way of seniors who are on a mission. Nevertheless, you may have experienced ageism, which is discrimination based on age, which is age, either old age or young age. For seniors, it purports perhaps that seniors are more takers than givers to the society, more of a burden or a drain on the economy and society than a benefit. I believe that this church and most other churches put a lie to that perspective. You demonstrate, and you could even teach a course on the subject of senior productivity that controverts ageism and shows that with age we can get better, like fine aged wine. Ageism, however, as I said, also discriminates against the young, with a misguided assumption that their skills and experience are not adequate to the task, whatever the task may be. Ageism in either direction demeans the gift of God. No matter one's age, one outcome from this parable was the enrichment of the wealthy man's estate by the efforts of the first two good and faithful servants or slaves. the most capable slaves, the story goes. Now recall that this was done by trading. These two engaged themselves with others who are presumably outside the boundaries of the estate of the wealthy man in order to find trading partners. The unfaithful servant, however, did absolutely nothing to enhance the welfare of his master or the community in which he lived, and went so far as to hide his resources, his talent, so others had no idea he'd even been given any responsibility. He took no risks, yet knew he was under obligation to produce a benefit for his master. When confronted upon his master's return, he confessed the reason for his behavior. He was afraid. Fear of his master ruled his life, leaving him impotent. Would he mess up? Would he make mistakes? Would he be found worthless? He did mess up, and he was found worthless. How might we have held back at times and not taken a risk to use our time or our talents out of fear that we would not measure up, that we might fail, that we might lose, that we might waste the time or the talent? Forgetting all our gifts, time, talent, and treasure belong to God. Life is something like playing Monopoly, except we are using someone else's money. It all belongs to God. Not all the gardens that we plant will produce the results that we desire. Yet we're still called upon to plant the gardens and to use the resources we've been given. Let's tie this in now with a related issue found earlier in the Gospel of Matthew, when Jesus spoke part of what's called the Sermon on the Mount. These are beautiful, beautiful words and extremely challenging. You, he said to the crowd, meaning you and I, are the light of the world, the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. No. Instead, they put it on a stand so that everyone in the house can have the light. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. When we hide our light, we are devaluing the gift of who God made us to be. The unfaithful slave chose to hide what he'd received. He cut off his chance to work or involve himself with the community and enrich and glorify God's world. He lived in a darkness. Like the three slaves, we're not told what to do with what we've received, except in some way to enhance the kingdom of God. Find ways to express Christ's love to the community. Find ways to be the light here in this town of Clarksville. Now, at the end of our lives, we all want to be hearing the words, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And that praise, for most, it won't come from the size of the monetary inheritance that they leave. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, and 170 other billionaires have pledged to give away most of their fortunes, to use their fortunes and invest them in projects like finding a cure to Alzheimer's disease. Please know the talents in Jesus' parable are metaphors that we are to use our gifts to define and enhance Christ's mission to those who don't know who God is. Jesus is clear through the Gospels that our faithfulness and our spiritual riches grow by giving ourselves away. That's measured in how we continue Christ's mission to feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, comfort the sick, join others in countless ministries to seek justice and peace. It's God's Spirit that enables and energizes us to live out our faith, to shine our lights into all the dark places of the world. This is the Christ effect. The effect isn't always easy or simple to achieve. It can require risk to obtain reward, and it requires faith to overcome fear. What skills, talents, and gifts have we buried that we need to dig up and dust off and use? If you remember nothing else from this sermon, remember the first verse of this hymn by William Howe, who wrote in 1854, "We give thee but thine own. Whate'er the gift may be, all that we have is thine alone, a trust, O Lord, from thee." To the glory of God. Amen.